Hello and thank you everyone for tuning in. My name is Pontus Österberg, and I will soon tell you who I am. In this presentation, we'll talk about scale-ups and specifically prototyping for scale-ups and why that is maybe a little bit different. And I will give you some very concrete advice on what you can do to have functional digital product prototyping, and a story about a piano and a laser projector. But first, let me tell you a little bit of who I am and why this should be of any importance to you. As I said, I'm Pontus. I am one of the founders or co-founders of Prototyp Stockholm. I'm an engineer at training, never worked as such though. Started working a little bit in the public sector for a hospital. Took me a few years, and then I went for the entrepreneurial track. I started my first company together with some friends in 2008. And in 2011, we started what is now Prototyp Stockholm, where I work. Prototyp Stockholm then, let's see if I can get to actually the presentation mode. We are on a 10th year of coding business breakthroughs. As that kind of implies, we are coding a lot. Everyone is, if not engineers, then at least writing code, and that's what we do. We're about 30-ish people, and we normally work with new technology and new ground for our clients. So if there are clients that have some kind of digital maturity in the company, they already have their own IT department or developers. We normally don't work with their key business, but rather with the new business or new technology. And if we work with smaller clients, of course, then we're closer to the core business of the company. We have about, as I said, 10 years working with startups, scale-ups, big companies. I would say that I personally have been involved with between 100 and 200 digital projects over the years, and of course, as a company, even more. We have an office in Stockholm, the main office, and we also have an office in Barcelona, which I am headed. And then, as believe it or not, we're starting up in Uppsala this very fall, 2020. We just signed a contract for a really nice office downtown, walking distance from the station. So if you're interested in working with us in any way, as a collaborator or a client, employee, please contact me or any of my colleagues that will be around after this presentation. Okay, let's get started then. First question. Why do we even prototype? Of course, this should be quite easy to answer, but nevertheless, there are three key things that I think that we should talk about. And we want to prototype because we want to gain insights on problems and hypotheses that we should be able to state before we even start. We want to do this at low cost as possible and as quickly as possible. And we do this to guide and increase the speed for a real production process that may or may not happen once we have done our prototyping. And of course, low cost or low effort is the key here. This is the really difficult thing to nail down. Just like in the minimum viable product concept, what is actually minimum viable? How much do you need to do to really understand that people did not want your product or did not want your prototype because they didn't have that need, and how much is because you had a too sloppy execution or wasn't paying enough attention to details. So I'm not going to answer that question now. I'm just saying that this is going to be a key thing for anyone trying to prototype. But again, we want to gain insights, and we want to do this as quickly as possible. A little bit about scale-ups then. How is this connected to scale-up? When you work at a scale-up, lots of things are happening all the time. I know, because we had plenty of those clients, and it can seem like that everything is, if not against you, then at least a quite tough mountain to climb. Some happy news for you. If we look at the mature companies or the incumbents, they normally are said to have their business model in place, but are constantly looking for the next product, and the next product to sell to their existing clients, or to replace an earlier bestseller, or just to keep the competition at bay. Then we have the startups or the dreamers. Normally they're said to have the next product, or at least a very good idea of the next product, and they're in search of their business model. But lucky you, the scale-ups, you come with both, right? You have the next big product and you have a proven business model. So keep that in mind when life is tough as a scale-up, that you have something that both the one below you and above you are looking for. Okay, why would this then affect the way we prototype? Basically, maybe it shouldn't be so much the prototyping itself than the setting that will affect you, because in a scale-up, things happen. You're on the way to become the establishment. That means that you have, for the first time, quite an amount of clients that you could lose, or that you have to continue to impress, because you are the challenger, that they expect more from you, and digital services have a way shorter life expectancy than traditional services or companies. And that means that you can't be as, you have to pay a little bit more attention to detail in your prototyping, as long as you put your name on the prototype. Also, typically in a scale-up, you're starting to build your organization. There are lots of more people around, and this slows down the decision-making process. So you'll have to wait longer for things to happen. Typically, key people that before would help you with your product are now tied up in what's hopefully profitable operations. And there's also very common that there is a process innovation focus rather than product innovation focus, meaning that, hey, we have our product figured out. Let's go and get more clients. Let's tweak the operations so we can become profitable. Of course, in this, the challenge is to stay as lean and as agile as you were when you were a startup. And how do you do that then? Well, basically, first thing I would say, like, try to get back to the conditions you had when you were a startup, and don't use all your clients or users as guinea pigs in your experiments. But maybe you should experiment not at all with your own clients, but with some other user groups. Or maybe you should even, I suggest that you should do it without putting your brand on the prototype at all, because that will give you lots of more freedom in how you deal with the products or problems, and don't have to actually be that detailed in your execution. Then a few things that holds true, either if you're scale up or not, about rapid prototyping, best practices that we've come across over the years with our clients, and that I think kind of define this rapid, like quick and dirty prototyping. And first, try to reduce and reframe the problem. When you have an idea of a new product or a new service, you have lots of things that you're thinking of. But if you really try to nail down what is unique, what makes my product stand out from the others, and that unique feature or functionality, that's what you should go for when you're prototyping. That's what you need to figure out whether or not your prospective clients or users would like. Another way to identify your candidate for prototyping is to look at a chain of assumptions. I mean, you think, if I do this and this, the users will respond in this way, and that will lead to something and something and something, and at the end of the line, lots of money for me, right? So a lot of assumptions there. Try to figure out which is the assumption that you're the least sure of. What do you think is your biggest bet? And then try to go for that when you prototype. In that way, you kind of reduce and reframe the problem. So from being something big, it should be quite contained. Next thing, when we try to work with or start working with the solution, simplify the solution. And in our case, we build code. There are many things to do to make us, have to avoid writing all this code. And basically, it's like just do it for one platform or one device. Don't worry about corner cases. They will be there, and they will be very tough to make, and they will cost you a lot of money. But let's not worry about them now. Admin interface, onboarding. Unless onboarding is the thing that you're actually prototyping, just don't do them. And if there's one thing I really want to point out here, like one trick, it is to ask yourself if you really need user handling in your product. I mean, it's so common. We think of it like, hey, we need to create this account, and then you can do that and this and that. And it's tempted as a scale up that you try to use your existing user handling, but that will put lots of constraints on what you can do, because we have to do it with a certain tech stack, with a certain, all kinds of stuff that makes it more complex. And as soon as you start to gather information on the users, you're actually falling under the GDPR laws that we have here in Europe, and there are lots of other things that you have to think of, including security. That is quite expensive. So don't make the mistake and say like, hey, we have to make this, a user handling, and also because there's user fatigue among the users. Like, why should I create a new account, or why should I share my details from my Google login? So if you can, stay away from that. That's my best advice. Then moving into the implementation, cheat as much as you can. Ask yourself, am I really the only one who tried to solve this problem before? I mean, we live in an interconnected world, and most likely you're not the first one to try this. So Google it, see what others tried to do, what did they learn, what approach did they have, why did it work, why didn't. Basically learn from others' mistakes. And once you get down to actually coding or doing stuff, first of all, scout the open source community. There's so many good things out there that we can use and reuse if we just, are open with what we're doing and pay credit to the ones who have started things. Work with third-party software as a service services for dealing with, these services are made for you to connect rapidly and would avoid, make it able for you to avoid to write code. So basically, rather patch services and the work of others than starting from scratch. Which leads down to the fourth thing. Remember, we're trying to get the insights here, not the product. And if you do this rapid prototyping, it will probably be quite quick, but the results you come up with in terms of digital assets will be rubbish. So don't even think of reusing it. You will save yourself a lot of tears if you go for the insights and then throw away whatever you produced on the way. Okay, back to the piano and the laser projector. One of my favorite cases that we worked with was a team that said, hey, I have a great idea. We're gonna make this mini laser projector, and we're gonna plug it into our iPhone, and then we wanna play any given song on Spotify, parse the stream, and out would come, these lights indicators on the keys of the piano. So somebody could learn how to play the piano without reading notes, basically like a real-time or real-life SingStar or Rock Band. Can it be done? And by the way, the budget is minimal. Of course, following our approach of reducing the problems, asking yourself the question like, what is it that we really should try to find out here, boils down to like, can people actually learn how to play the piano if you light up the keys on the piano? If you can't do that, then we don't have to solve all the problems of the hardware, which is, by the way, quite expensive and very difficult for those of you who have tried that. So that's where we focused our efforts. With that, scouting the open source project or communities, quite quickly we came up with someone who had a project with code that would parse a MIDI file, so not any given music file, but a MIDI file, and from the frequency, don't ask me how they did it, but somehow we could get the tones that were played in the song in the right order. And then it was just a problem of translating that to coordinates in space on the piano. And the cool thing, and the laser projector, yes, very cool to have a mini laser projector, but to actually project this on the piano, we had an ordinary projector that was kind of strapped to some device above the piano, quite rough, kind of MacGyver style. The cool thing is, though, it worked, and we had, I think this is like a really small project. We had 40 hours. We spent half of the hours of trying to reduce the problem, trying to cheat, trying to, how can we actually come up with something, and the other half of actually writing a small application, which was a Google Chromecast application. Only time we ever wrote a Chromecast application. But the cool thing is we could tell that it worked. People could play the piano that way, and our client could go on and investigate the trickier part of actually getting the laser projector to work. Okay, cool. So then just a brief recap. This is very short, 15 minutes, trying to squeeze in a lot of information. If you should remember one thing from this presentation, it is as you become a scale-up, you will have to fight to stay quick in your prototyping. And once you have secured that, go for these four pillars of reducing and reframing the problem, simplifying the solution, cheat in your execution, and go for the insights and not for the products. So I will check in to see if there are any questions to be answered. But just before that, and before I forget, me and my colleagues will be around in the exhibitor's booth for the rest of the day. And I also believe there's an offer that you can sign up for consultation, sitting down one-on-one with us for an hour. And we will give you our 2 cents on your ideas and the next steps you should take if you're thinking of a new product or prototype. But again, I will check into the flow and see here if we have. I'm not very good at multitasking, so I will be quiet and try to read. Yes, Masi is asking me to repeat the cheating part. Basically, the idea is like don't write more code than you have to. A lot of people wrote code before, and there's a lot of functionality out there that you can kind of patch together. There are excellent software as a service services that are basically made for you to use their API, and you're up and running in 5 minutes. Do that instead of inventing the wheel yourself. Very cool showcase. Thank you very much. It wasn't mine though. The idea wasn't mine. We were just contracted to do it, but it was for sure a lot of fun to do, and that's why I still talk about it. Someone asked me when playing the piano. Delaney says when it comes to playing the piano, the key is one of the main thing, but the pressure applied on it also makes a difference. Does this also cover that aspect of it? I missed a bit of the beginning. No, it doesn't. It was basically what I said, like a real life application of SingStar or something. You would know which keys to play. An interesting aspect is that we had to actually work a little bit with the interval between when you would light up the key and when it was actually played. Because if you light it up at the moment when it's played, most people who never played the piano before, they didn't reach that key. So you needed to be maybe half a second ahead. And people kind of got the hang of it quite quickly. What is our go-to design methodology? I mean, as I said in the beginning of the presentation, we are a tech company, so we're coding. Of course, we always work together with designers, just that they're not hired by us. And a lot of times we are basically in the hands of our collaborating partner when it comes to design and methodology. But of course, we're advocates of having us, the developers, in the early stage of concepts and even designing. Part of it is because we believe that coding is a creative discipline, but also to kind of give early on advice on what's doable, what's easy fix, how could we do something instead that would be even faster to figure something out. Milos asked what happened with the idea, by the way. Well, I know that the company we worked with on this particular idea, that they pivoted. They were themselves industrial designers, who in turn had another client behind them, and they're quite successful with something called the transparent speaker. If you haven't heard about it, check it out. It's really cool. I know they're winning lots of design prizes, and this piano application was supposed to be some kind of evolution of an ecosystem around those first products, physical products that this agency were developing. James asked, with regard to user accounts, would you advise against user accounts in early stages of the product? Can you expand a little bit more on the GDPR laws behind this? Thank you. Yeah, what a great thing. My point is just that we think that we have to have a user and we have to have a user account, and that's kind of the starting point. And it's true with modern web framework, it doesn't take you long to get that up and running. But if you're a scale-up, it's very likely that like, hey, let's use the user account that we already have, and then we're back to being confined to or constrained by the tech environment that we already have, and it kind of becomes a bigger thing than it has to be. And it just, the general thing as well, as even when you just take the email of a person, that is considered personal information in European, in this, I think it's called General Data Protection Regulation. And once that kicks in, you have to do lots of stuff. I mean, the user has the right to be erased. You have to say that you cannot keep the information for longer than you actually need, and you need to prove it why. You need to assign someone who be the data holder or the data representative. And basically, it's not that much, but if you can stay away from it, do it. Because I think very often we don't get that much use out of having the user handling. I mean, for sure, there are times when you need to have a user, but so my advice was like, just ask yourself, do you really need it? Because I think you will save some time and some worries on that. Okay. Nabil says, how do we avail the offer to have one-on-one session? There is, we have an exhibitor's booth in this event. My colleagues will be there to chat with you, and I think there's a sign-up list or something, or at least talk to Per. Per will be there, and he will take care of you, and we'll make sure that you have a one-on-one session with us. Okay. Last question, I think Neda is asking, what is the usual time frame in validating the problem and prototyping? Ooh, how long is a piece of what do you call it? Or you shouldn't try to translate on the fly any expression. Anyway, it's a difficult question. Of course, it depends on exactly what we're doing. But again, my point will be here, like, it depends also on which way you try to solve the question. And since one of my main points is like, try to reduce or reframe the problem, I will always say like the shorter the time, the better, because most of the time you do prototyping, you will find out that the user didn't really want everything that you thought that they wanted. So that's why you shouldn't cry when you throw away the results that you did during the prototyping, because it's quite likely that you won't use the code, or that the prototyping will give you an insight that is a no instead of a yes. So if anything, try to go for the smaller the prototype and the faster the insight, basically. Okay. Is there any other? I think I answered all questions. If anyone on my team say that I haven't, or we're all good, I'm told. Unless a last question is popping in now as I speak. Yes, what's the length of a piece of string? Thank you, Joachim. Again, but maybe the lesson should be, don't try to translate anything on the fly, just bound to fail. Okay, with that, thank you very much for listening. As I said, we will be around for the rest of the day in the booth. I hope you learned something, and I would love to hear feedback or comments later. Thank you very much.